I truly believed there were no secrets left between my wife and me. After spending 27 wonderful years together, I trusted every explanation she ever gave without hesitation. Then, in a single heartbreaking moment, she was gone. The police ruled her death a tragic highway accident, and I was left trying to understand how life could continue without her. 3 days after her funeral, an unexpected call changed everything. A notary asked me to visit his office. I assumed it was about insurance paperwork or our shared finances. Instead, he placed a small set of elegant silver keys on the desk and informed me that my wife, Grace, had transferred ownership of a luxurious city penthouse into my name years before she passed away. I stared at him, convinced there had been some mistake. Grace and I had always lived a simple, comfortable life. We weren't wealthy, and she had never once mentioned owning another property. When I asked where the money had come from, the notary politely explained that every document was completely legal. However, Grace had left strict instructions that the reasons behind the purchase were never to be discussed. I drove home with more questions than answers. As I sat alone that evening, memories replayed in my mind. Grace often traveled several times each year, always saying she had important business meetings. Whenever I became curious, she would smile warmly, squeeze my hand, and tell me not to worry about it. Because I loved her, I never pushed for more information. At first, I decided I would simply sell the apartment without ever stepping inside. The thought of dealing with another painful mystery felt overwhelming. But curiosity eventually defeated my grief. A week later, I drove into the city. The address led me to one of the most prestigious residential towers I'd ever seen. Uniformed security officers greeted residents by name, and the elegant lobby looked more like a luxury hotel than an apartment building. When I handed the receptionist the keys, she smiled knowingly. "We've been expecting you, Mr. Robert." Those words immediately made me uneasy. The private elevator carried me directly to the penthouse entrance. As the doors opened, I found myself standing before an extraordinary home, with polished marble floors, towering glass windows, and breathtaking view stretching across the entire skyline. Yet something didn't feel right. Lights were already glowing inside. Someone was there. Carefully, I stepped into the living room. An elderly woman sat peacefully in an armchair with a framed photograph of Grace resting on her lap. She looked up, met my eyes, and spoke softly. "I've been waiting for you." My heart nearly stopped. She introduced herself as Eleanor. According to her, she and Grace had shared a close friendship for more than 3 decades. They first met while volunteering at a shelter that protected women and children escaping abusive homes. Everything I believed about Grace's so-called business trips suddenly began to unravel. "There were never business meetings," Eleanor explained gently. "Every trip was part of her mission to help people who had nowhere else to go." I could barely process what I was hearing. Grace had quietly devoted years of her life to supporting survivors of domestic violence. She used her own savings to provide emergency assistance without telling anyone, not even me. The luxurious penthouse wasn't purchased for vacations or investment. It had served as a confidential refuge where frightened families could stay safely while rebuilding their lives. I stood speechless. Eleanor opened a large cabinet filled with journals. Each notebook documented another life Grace had touched. She had paid hospital expenses for complete strangers. She covered school fees for children whose parents couldn't afford an education. She purchased mobility equipment for disabled individuals. She helped families rent their first apartments after escaping dangerous situations. She never asked for publicity. She never accepted recognition. She simply helped because she believed it was the right thing to do. Finally, Eleanor handed me one last envelope. My hands trembled as I unfolded the letter inside. It was Grace's handwriting. "My dearest Robert, if you're reading this, then I've already said goodbye. I chose to keep this part of my life private because kindness loses something when it's done for applause. If you decide to sell this place, I won't blame you. But if you choose to continue what we started here, then a part of my heart will always remain beside yours. I couldn't hold back the tears. For the first time since losing her, I felt as though Grace was speaking directly to me. That very day, I abandoned every plan to sell the penthouse. Instead, I joined Eleanor. Together, we continued opening the doors to families with nowhere else to turn. Months passed. One evening, a young mother accepted the apartment keys with shaking hands. She hugged me tightly and whispered, "My children will finally sleep without being afraid." In that moment, I understood what Grace had truly left behind. It wasn't expensive real estate. It wasn't financial security. She had entrusted me with a mission. Years have passed since then, and people often ask how I managed to survive losing the woman I loved more than anything. My answer is always the same. I never truly lost her. Every family that begins a safer chapter of life within these walls reminds me that genuine love doesn't disappear when someone dies. Sometimes it simply continues through the lives we choose to help. I believed I had inherited a magnificent penthouse. Instead, I inherited the greatest secret my wife ever kept, and the greatest gift she could have left me. Her final act transformed my sorrow into purpose. If this story touched your heart, remember this. The most meaningful legacy isn't measured by money or possessions. It's measured by the lives we quietly make better. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, share this video with your friends and family, and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us continue sharing unforgettable stories.